listening to 100 Words or Less with Ray Harkins. Hello one, hello all. Welcome to this podcast in which we obsess over the details in punk, hardcore, indie rock, emo, metal, whatever genre or subgenre it is. We cover all of those people who are creating it, making it, documenting it in a very real way. And today is, of course, no exception to that rule. This conversation is slightly different because you'll get the framing. I have Frank Bach, who is the vocalist for a Los Angeles-based hardcore band called Monk. And the angle here is the fact that, yes, he's a part of the DIY punk and hardcore community, always interested in talking to people about that. But he's worked in the corporate world for quite some time with, brands like Red Bull and Headspace. And he currently is the staff product designer at Instagram, which, of course, everybody on the entire planet is a part of. And the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with Frank is because many of us that navigate the adult world work corporate jobs. I work a corporate job. He works a corporate job. Many of you who are listening to this work a corporate job. And there is this very stark disconnect in regards to the fact that we were raised within a punk and hardcore community where we were talking about rallying against traditional jobs and, just not wanting to live our lives as a part of the system or whatever. And then there is the reality that many of us come up against, whether it's like just existing in the world and bills and all of these things. So anyways, we discuss that and we talk a lot about the inherent trade-off that we have in pursuing corporate interests, but at the same time, the benefit of existing inside of a corporate system and influencing it from the inside out, which obviously I know is, maybe a little bit of a colored perspective because that is the perspective that I'm coming to the table with. But anyways, Monk slays. Amazing band. You should check them out. They released a 7-song EP last year in April that is just really, really good. And I personally had never heard of them before until Frank reached out to me and was like, hey, check this out. I am in this band and this is why I think we should talk. And I was like, you know what? I would love this. So that's what we're doing this week. If you want to correspond with the show, you can always email me, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I receive any and all feedback, whether it's guest ideas or whether it's just simply saying what's up. Love all that feedback. And if you want to support the show for absolute free, one, you can share on social media platforms, all of those ways. Like, how about on Instagram, the company that Frank works for? How about you take, these images and just share them around? Just give it the signal boost. All of those things help. And then if you leave a rating and review on the Apple Podcast page or simply leave a rating on the Spotify page, all of those things help out. The show does not do video. Yes, I publish the episodes to YouTube, and you'll be able to find a link in the show notes that can take you right to that page so you can subscribe and follow along there if you listen to /watch podcasts on there. But because I don't do video, there's a lack of discoverability that exists. So that is why I'm making sure that you can support the show in the way that you can. And, rather than just like a passive, here's a 10-second clip that, goes viral on social. That's not happening here. Long form conversations. That is what's happening here. So anyways, let's talk about weekly recommendations. You'll find a link in the show notes for Apple Music or a Spotify page where it's just a rolling playlist, things that I recommend on a weekly basis, new, old, everything in between. And hopefully it exposes you to something that you maybe have never checked out or listened to. It's one of the most direct pieces of feedback that I get about the show is thank you for introducing me to this band, this artist, whatever. I love hearing that. And truthfully, that is a very integral part to this show. So the weekly recommendation this week is something that is completely not new at all, but this is something that I actually got introduced via my son, who is a huge Beatles guy. And George Harrison had a very illustrious solo career after the Beatles clearly disbanded in the 60s. But he released a record called All Things Must Pass. And this was his first record after the post-Beatles breakup. And it is such a good record. I cannot say enough positive things about this. I listen to this constantly now, and I've been listening to it a lot over the past month. And if for whatever reason you did not pay attention to George Harrison's solo material, I highly encourage you. This record is for sure a classic, and I I'm probably getting laughs from those of you who are just like, yeah, idiot, George Harrison, very good musician. Like, that is not a newsflash, but sometimes these things boomerang back to you in ways that you didn't expect. And like, truthfully, I don't know if I ever would have dove into George Harrison as a solo musician if it wasn't for my son listening to it and me being like, you know what, this is really, really good. So take the time, listen to George Harrison. All Things Must Pass, spectacular record. So now let's talk to Frank Bach from Monk. We talk about corporate punk life. We talk about Southern Ontario. We talk about punk as art, all the good things. So let's talk to Frank right now. Your breadth of experience, not only within the context of like punk and hardcore, but like working in, large scale companies and, brand names that everybody on this entire planet is aware of. Like, not everybody can exist in that world for as long as you have. And, they churn out because they're like, oh, I can't work for this. I can't figure this out or whatever. But, I think the best way to kind of lay the groundwork is just kind of your own personal introduction to, kind of like punk, hardcore, independent music, all that sort of stuff. Cause I think that will, set the table for where it is that you're coming from and like how you got into this weird world.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for saying that. And it is, sometimes it's a weird balance. It's a weird place to be in. I think I'm like sometimes too corporate for punk, too punk for corporate kind of thing. Like, I'm going to be the least punk guest on the whole podcast ever, which is fine. So warning, anyone who's triggered by that, you're not going to like what you hear. Probably not. But also, I feel like I get DMs from people who are basically, grown up adults in our world, in the music world, who are sometimes asking me like, hey man, how do I like break into sort of career, real job-ish world? And, there's a lot of companies that people aren't big fans of and all these things. And of course, yeah, you're totally right. Yes, 100%. But, when I'm like 65 years old looking to retire, like, the punk world's not going to save me.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be probably whatever money I put away in my retirement plan. And I'll be too old for punk, and we'll see where that goes. I don't know. Well, I'm crossing my fingers. Where this all started, I guess, I have always been just a computer kid, I guess. I'm born in 87, 38 years old. Even on days off, like right now, we're in the middle of, between Christmas and New Year's, which is like, do these days even exist? It's like a hilarious meme all the time. Like, I would be on my computer. I would be doing stuff, making stuff. I can't stop making stuff. And sometimes it's music. Sometimes I was, making websites, making projects, little side things for friends, myself, family, whatever. And started making basically posters, artwork, building online communities. I'm old enough to be part of the kind of like IRC world of, like the beginning of I guess what my entry into music was essentially concert promotion.
Oh, okay.
So I did that for a good 10 years. I was avoiding getting a real job through high school and college, and started, making posters and booking shows. And then eventually it was like, hey, shit, maybe I should pick up an instrument, I guess. And, what's the easiest one? I guess it's a bass. I could play that. Maybe. We'll see. First band practice, first time touching a bass. I'll try.
Sure.
And,
there's two less strings. That's okay.
True. Yeah. It's a little, guitarist could sort of teach you how to follow along. And that's kind of been my weird kind of sideways entry into the world of music. And I've always prioritized my kind of design and art career, and then music has sort of like blended into it in a few ways, whether by designing MySpace pages and learning how to code, or making artwork and being the guy in the band who knows how to send stuff to print.
Yep.
So that's kind of been it. And then
where was
COVID,
it?
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I was going to ask where. So where in particular were you doing like the concert promotions and like?
Yeah.
Because I know you're based in you're based in LA now, right?
I'm in LA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I grew up in Sudbury, Ontario, Canada. Basically halfway between Thunder Bay and Toronto, dead zone for shows, and got to have a bunch of insane bands coming through our town. Because have you been through that stretch before?
I have. For whatever reason, the band that I played in or I guess technically still play in,
Yeah.
we put out records on Goodfellow Records based out of Hamilton,
Right.
Ontario. And so
Yeah.
because of that, we just had a following there from the get-go
Mm-hmm.
and played every single suburb you could possibly, like, whether it was Guelph, Hamilton,
Yep.
everything in between. So yeah, I
Yeah.
love that whole area. Even before getting to go there and play
Right.
shows there, I was obsessed with, all of the Southern Ontario hardcore scene in general. So it's like anytime
Love
I
it.
can talk Southern Ontario, I
Love
love
it.
it. So that's cool.
Well, you had some Goodfellow. I mean, rest in peace, Goodfellow. Had some Every Time I Die,
Yeah.
Cursed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, no, incredible albums come out of that label. Also, I feel like Taken has had a really interesting journey of having like some hot spots in that way, and obviously Japan has been one too. And as an outsider, I'm like, damn, that is like
Yeah.
you guys
They love
go like
I know they
keep
love their
keep
melodic hardcore.
keep going. I mean, do you remember this band For Dire Life's Sake?
Oh, dude, love them. Yes.
Okay,
Right.
okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
love it. Okay, so where I was at, we were booking a lot of that stuff, and I think also my connection to bands like Counterparts and etc. We would book a band called Rose is Dead
Oh,
quite often.
dude. I mean,
Can't even
you're
can't
speaking my
even find
language.
it on Spotify. It's not even
No.
no,
Yeah.
it's not even there. Also,
No.
Jason Manti,
Jason
he's like
Manti,
a
yeah.
product manager at Google today. Also another career guy.
Right. Yeah.
Goes deep. Yeah, anyway. And then I remember when Wedge joined Roses For Dire Life's Sake, and like just connecting with those guys. And I was like 16-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid. I don't know. But yeah, that changed my world, back when gas was like 76 cents a gallon or something like that.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love that experience, not only just because I have a selfish way to talk about the things that I experience as well,
Yeah,
but like that idea of you getting involved. Cause I mean, at that era, that was like the infancy of the internet. So like there was
sure.
so much opportunity there
Mhm.
because bands didn't really know how to like use it to their advantage besides like, oh, like maybe we can get more people like it was so
Yeah.
functional and that was it. Like,
Yep.
oh, there's a
Yep.
message board or whatever. But like
Right.
it wasn't until people like yourself and others were able to like think creatively about other ways of like how to, make that system work
Right.
better for bands or whatever. So it's so cool.
I did my best, yeah. My heart was really in promotion and marketing and less in the like, I always joke that I'm like the worst band member. Like I hate jamming. Let's like goal oriented. Like what are we making and why and who's going to pay for this? And for the guys and gals who have been in bands with me, I think they're grateful for that, but it can definitely for your sort of like hardcore purist musician can be like, where's this guy coming from? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, I don't. This is all I know how to be. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like you don't want to hang out. You're like, no, we got to have a point for this. Like, otherwise, what are we doing here?
Down to hang, but like where are the results? I'm looking for results. Also, I think it's funny because I've listened to your episodes, many of them over the years, and like I think it's super cool to have you're having interviews with people, and you're not it's about the conversation and the viewpoint and things like this. But also as like a sort of a data nerd, I'm like I want we all check the Spotify for artists kind of app and see what's going on here. How can I kind of like skew this
Mm-hmm.
for in whatever direction. Obviously it's not the only thing, but it is an input, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah, it helps. It helps inform
Yeah,
the sort of because truthfully, I think what is not only fun for me, but fun for
sure.
people like either yourself or listeners in general, where it's like, this is just an audio zine. Like being able
Yeah,
to
true,
document
true.
whether it's a particular scene, a particular band, or a particular point of view, I think that's
Mm-hmm.
incredibly, especially devoid of context, which most of the internet is now. Like you get just
So rough.
you're not even
Yeah,
right. You're not even a snapshot.
yeah,
It's like a
yeah,
pinhole. Like, and you can
yeah.
you can build around it, like whether
Mm-hmm.
you're deep diving into Reddit or Wikipedia or whatever. But like until you're hearing
Right.
it straight from the person's mouth, you're just missing a layer
Yeah,
of context that is important to me, and I know important to many others.
totally get it.
Yeah. So with the concert promotion side of things and like
Mhm.
that, your general area, and like you said, always being, attracted to computers and obviously design and being able to put that together
Mhm.
like that. I mean,
Yeah.
every band should have a person like you that knows how to design. Cause like the moment that a band is like, wait, dude, we got to pay someone like $200 to do a shirt design. Like it's terrifying. And
Yeah.
so
Right.
it,
You're like, "We got the whole album written. What does the artwork look like?" Where I'm like, I'm the opposite. I start with the vision board and,
right.
like, work from there.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And so your the ability to kind of apply that creative discipline,
Sure.
even though it wasn't something like you said, you were picking up a bass just at practice or
Yeah.
whatever. Did you feel like that was like your contribution to the band? You're like, yeah, I can play in a band, but like this is where I can really cook.
Oh, 100%. I suck at bass. I'm terrible at instruments. No. It was like, I'm like, I have to like triple down on the things that no one else wants to do so that I can even like not get kicked out of this band. That was kind of the feeling as, like an 18-year-old kid who just desperately wanted to be part of something.
Yep.
And yeah, so I was registering the domains and booking the studio time and figuring all that stuff out. And um, yeah, no, it was. I mean, I also like all that said. I enjoy that part of it, which
Mhm.
is always fun because I thought there's a few of these Instagram, I don't know, music industry kind of influencer accounts, and it feels like a lot of the content that gets put out there is around kind of the stuff nobody wants to do. And I hear it and I'm like, shit, that's like I love that stuff.
Right. That's my
That's
default.
fun. Yeah, that's my go-to.
Yeah. And I like that because to your point, like everybody should contribute something to the
Mhm.
band to move it forward, whether it's they're the songwriter, whether they own the
Yeah,
van. Like it's only
sure.
when those puzzle pieces come together where a band can kind of, be able to take it more seriously, whatever that may mean, if it's putting out a record or
Yeah,
whatever. It's like you need to
no,
have
you're totally right.
you need to have
Yeah,
some alchemy in order to make that tangible for
right.
people outside of your own sphere.
Nailed it. Yep,
Yeah.
100%.
The so as you were navigating all this and obviously figuring out like, what to do with your life and, how you're going to apply the things that you were learning or whatever. How were your parents, as you were into this stuff that was
Yeah.
understandably probably pretty weird to them? What were they concerned or they're just like, "Oh no, like Frank has his head in his shoulders.
He's
Like
I
seems
think I
okay."
gotta give I will give a shout out to both my parents, mom and dad. They were super supportive and sort of like trusting in whatever I wanted to do. I think there was like a time, around, I don't know, 14, 15, where they sort of felt like they were maybe out of their depth with guidance. And I think being in the US now and having, I've got a 5-year-old kid and we're figuring out the LAUSD sort of school system and like, where does this kid go? Private, public, and like the pathway to Loyola Marymount University. Like this kid is 5 years old. Why are we talking? It's insane.
Right,
And
right.
I just, so like, I've seen this side of it. And so like from my parents' standpoint, they were like, yeah, like you seem to know what you're doing, and
Okay.
I got to give that up to them. I don't know if it was like confidence building for me or I guess obviously was. And I think just being in the early days of, the internet and it wasn't something that your parents knew. It was just something that you kind of, came into the house at one point in whatever,
Mhm.
2001 or something. And as a teenager, you became the master of online in your home. And yeah, they just put their trust in me. And I think I exceeded their expectations early on. And they just never really questioned what I was doing. And I'm a, I started in graphic design, eventually moved into the world of product. And like I meet a lot of people in the design world. I do some meetups here in LA. And like, I think like I've never once thought I don't want to be a designer anymore. That's always been like in my heart. If it wasn't working for companies, I'm going to be making zines, making a thing, building a thing. Like this is the skill set I know the best, and I apply it to like whatever I can, I guess.
I love welcoming new sponsors on the show. And today is our friends at Iodine Recordings because they are re-releasing Quicksand's Manic Compression, which is clearly one of the most influential post-hardcore records of the 90s. It is so important to me, and I am so glad that this is coming out again for the 30th anniversary, and this is the definitive edition of this thing. It's remastered for vinyl from the original 1995 tapes. It's housed in a deluxe gatefold jacket that features expanded artwork, and of course, there's limited edition vinyl variants that look so freaking cool. And on top of all of that, they have a limited edition 64-page hardcover book that chronicles that whole era of the band. It includes a foreword by Walter Schreifels, never-seen photos, and a ton of ephemera from around that band's time, plus writings from bands like Knocked Loose, Coheed and Cambria, Newfound Glory, Bane, Drug Church, Glassjaw, Touche Amore, and a ton more. This thing is wrapped with a soft touch cover that feels like a really, really high quality art book. Trust me, Iodine Recordings knows what they're doing in regards to these reissues. I've got them from other records in the past, and this one is just as beautiful as all those. So if Manic Compression meant something to you, or if this is your first time ever being like, you know what, I probably should buy this Quicksand record, do it now. Go to iodinerecords.com. Truthfully, it wasn't until like, I'm going to put my generation slightly older than yours, obviously, but like, I really think it was like my, generation, whether it's, 96 to like 2000, and then, your generation, 2000 to 2005, just like very rough approximations. But like, it wasn't until then where the graphic interface of the way that bands operated and presented themselves, whether it was, there was just more thoughtfulness, and then obviously more ease of access for like, I mean, I'll never forget the dude who plays guitar in Taken. He was doing shirt designs in the band, and I was just like, whoa, dude. I was like, that's crazy. But I think it wasn't until then where people could start to think about their life outside of just designing t-shirts or whatever. Like, do you think that's a valid approximation of like, people were able to understand that there were more options than obviously just working on like, poster layouts or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of was a sweet spot in, I guess, just in technology where you could easily move from like poster design into like a website is like a poster. It's like a big vertical poster, pre-responsive web design. So there's like, okay, like I could do that. I guess I could try that. And there wasn't a lot of like authority in that space. So you could be, just like a 20-year-old kid being like, yeah, I'll do that for you. A couple $1,000 sounds great. That's like way more money than any of my friends make. I'm happy to do that. So I jumped into that. And then I feel like myself and a friend of mine who we founded a little agency in Ontario, we basically hit the responsive web, like, nail on the head. We're the only shop in town who could do responsive web design. We understood it. We were kind of like, like digital native, I guess. And no one was touching that. It was mostly bigger agencies doing large like marketing campaigns, but they all needed a web component to it. And we were kind of like the go-to in that space. That was, I think that was like the kickstart of, then you can sort of see the transition. Okay, responsive web app store comes out, I'm getting interested in, I want to like, I want to build some apps. I want to work like less for clients and more for like users and, people who aren't necessarily telling you what to do, but you're sort of doing the research to discover what would they like and what, how can you kind of design things that maybe they'll use and find helpful.
Yeah. And I think the collision of that world and then, like you said, the, accessibility of technology, like they're hard baked into all of that, like the, startup communities and all, whether it was apps, whatever, anything in the technology space that had an element of like, you could recognize little nuggets of, punk or DIY in it where you're like, oh, sure. And then there was obviously a lot of people who are just like, I could just make a lot of money really quickly. Like, how can I do this? And as you were starting to, become more aware of that, I guess like the tech space and the tech world, as you started to interact with that, were there a lot of people that you interacted with that kind of had that element of like, oh yeah, you're just using this to obviously make a lot of money or whatever, like versus people who are just like, oh no, they like live and
Sure.
breathe the game.
I think a little bit of both. I mean, it's hard to look away when you uncover that. Like, I remember being in small town Ontario and learning that a friend of mine was working in Silicon Valley and what kind of income they were making. And just like, it's hard to look away from that. Shit, like we're basically doing the same job and you are like 10xing,
Right.
plus equity, plus all the other stuff that I could be doing. So it was really difficult to look away. I had my, sort of my Canadian pride. And nowadays we call it the elbows up kind of movement of like, I really wanted to be there, but it was really hard to look away. And as a kid who grew up, skateboarding and into punk rock, thinking about Southern California, I was like, come on, like this is where I gotta be. Like this is
Right.
it. Like
Yeah.
Venice Beach skate park. Like this is everything in my sort of inner, I don't know, culture and inner monologue was pointing to Southern California. So when that was able to happen through kind of a career move, getting a job at Red Bull, it was the easiest decision I've ever had to make.
Sure.
And yeah, I was happy to be here. But yeah, there were some people. I think there's a guy, Chuck Anderson, nopattern.com, I think it is. He was like a pretty early sort of visual artist blending into the world of kind of graphic and web design and like just super cool style and having his own aesthetic. I was also a big like graffiti kid, so a huge fan of people like Cope out of New York City, or recently bumped into Neckface at a Turnstile show here in LA.
That's
It's
cool.
just like you're like shit, like these are all the things I've been reading about my whole life, like reading Thrasher magazine, and I don't know, I'm just like thrilled to friggin' be here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
And like the reason that I think that not only like punk and independent music has been able to be so much more pervasive is that, I mean, just the pure existence of it, like the longevity, the fact
totally,
it's had time to gestate, but it's
yeah,
like the iconography that you point to, whether it's, the Black Flag bars, the, Misfits, Crimson Ghost, Descendants,
hmm,
Milo, like all of these things that people
yeah,
probably could look at and be like, is that a band? I don't know. Like
dude,
you can't even put it. And
yeah,
so, but it wasn't until all of those people were able to impact culture in different ways is that
right,
like, punk and hardcore was able to like get in the back door where it's like, oh,
yeah,
I guess this is legitimate art now. This is just screaming into a
true,
microphone or
true.
whatever.
Yeah, or like the getting out to San Pedro and seeing like like home of the Minutemen and just
Hmm.
being like, this is where it all happened. Yeah, it's like you jump in my car, I'll be there in 30 minutes. Like I can't believe that I get to live this
Right.
sometimes.
Sure. Totally. Totally. And I think that no matter how you navigate through, the corporate world or large entities or
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're doing, if you are bringing obviously your whole self to work, and I know that's like such a cheesy ass
Yeah, yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but like
I get it.
there are people that do really separate church and state
Mhm.
where it's like you don't even like, like you
Oh
don't
yeah.
know I've got tattoos, you don't know I'm in a band,
Yeah.
like nothing.
Yeah. So I shed that skin a couple of years ago
Okay.
when we started Monk. I decided, I don't know if it was a post-pandemic thing of like, why are we doing any of this? Like, who am I? Kind of big questions. It was like, you know what? Like, I'm at a point in my career and in my life. I'm a parent. I've done all the things that I felt I needed to sort of tick the boxes of, and I'm just going to be like a hardcore punk guy in the workplace. I just like, I don't hide it at all. I bring it up all the time. You sometimes you join a new job and they make you do an intro post
Of
of
course,
some
of course.
kind.
Here's an
And like,
icebreaker. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's like painfully awkward, but you bet I'm going in there with like a picture of me and a microphone and I'm like screaming, and like I'll link the Spotify. Like I don't care. I'm like it used to kind of embarrass me, or like I'd felt shy to kind of share that part of my life. And I think a lot of musicians would feel that way. Yeah, I mean, this will be better saved for therapy, but even identifying as a musician is sometimes a painful thing. Uh, but yeah, I just go in, share the link, and the funniest thing ever is that I get so many kind of secret punks coming out of the woodwork being like, oh, I grew up listening to NoFX, or I love, I played every Tony Hawk's like pro skater game, and all these people, especially in SoCal, it's so built into the culture that it's not this like secret weird thing you need to hide. And if you're comfortable bringing your whole self to work, like you said, I don't know, maybe I worked at Headspace for a little while, so I got really into, just like reflection and mindfulness and these things. And I think that's also spread into the kind of the feeling of our band. So I whatever, it's like kind of like a one life, one chance kind of vibe of like, I'm just going to put my whole self out there all the time. And if you like it, that's amazing. Love it. If you don't like it, that's also cool too. I think I like, I love you back. Love you back. It's fine. Like it's just not for you. But if you love it, then I'm happy you found your club.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think truthfully, like whether it to me, and I'm sure you've had experiences like this, it's so rewarding when you have people that have had experiences that get excited to talk about it, whether it's living nostalgically, be like, oh, dude, I haven't gone to that venue in 20 years. I went as there as a high schooler or whatever. But it does at least give you common language to work from. So it's not just the, like, you are just literally going to talk about, the ones and zeros that you're doing every day. It's like, no, like this, this is where the ones and zeros come from in my brain. Like it's all part of this.
And meeting folks like yourself and Chad, and Chad was kind of an early Twitter friend of mine, who, he did some time at Meta as well. He was working on Oculus. And I think I can't remember the year, but I saw Take and Play at Chain Reaction. Maybe when I first moved out here, maybe, I don't know, 9 to 8-ish years ago. And, even going to Chain Reaction, rest in peace, also what an amazing, seeing that at your funeral. Incredible. But again, like just even getting to Chain Reaction as an adult, I guess, it was like, I feel like I'm in the Mecca. Like this is where I needed to be this whole time. This is what a cool ass place. Why isn't everybody here? But yeah, there's you certainly meet those people who are sort of living that corporate-ish life while still holding on to some hobbies they had growing up. And I mean, yeah, you got one life, one way to do it. Why not, hold on to that stuff? I mean, I still try to skateboard. At least once a month. All the stuff that brought me joy as a teenager, and I'll do it until I can't.
Yes. We are so excited to talk about our friends at rockabilly.com because they first want to give you 10% off your order by using the promo code 100 words or less. But on top of all of that, they are an amazing merch purveyor of all officially licensed stuff from bands like punk, hardcore, metal, indie rock. We're talking mainstream rock, mainstream hip hop. I guarantee you that if you go to their website, you will be shocked and surprised at all of the things they have. And on top of that, that means bands get paid because this is officially licensed stuff. This isn't the bootleg community that exists because, let's be honest, bands don't see a dime from that. So Rockabilia does things the right way. They ship from the Midwest here in the US. Amazing customer service, and it gets to you fast from no matter where you are purchasing from. They obviously ship worldwide, so they got you taken care of all over the place. Please go to rockabilia.com and use the promo code 100 words or less for 10% off your order right now. Like you said, the Red Bull experience brought you out here, and I know you were working on like Red Bull TV and stuff like that. And clearly the intersection of music and, sports and lifestyle, it's existed ever since, people picked up a board or a bike or whatever. Sure. What was, I guess there's probably a million learning experiences as you were starting to like build that, Red Bull TV product and like work in that space. Did you find that particular environment like overly corporate, or was it basically just like, yo, let it run, like as long as it looks cool and doesn't break, like we love what you're doing?
Right. No, it was pretty corporate. Not gonna lie. I think by that stage, Red Bull was founded in Austria. It was it's like a 51-49% like Austria and sort of like Thailand thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And basically a German, or an Austrian guy brought it from Asia and was able to brand it in a way that was really palatable to a Western audience. But then, the genius comes from essentially making a beverage a media brand. And I don't nowadays in, 2025 going into 2026, like what isn't a media brand? Like it's sort of everything. And
Yep.
I've got my Babylon hat, Trash Talk, like Trash Talk's a media brand,
It's true. It's true. They just happen to be a band that's attached to a brand.
Right.
Yeah. It's very weird.
Also fucking awesome and totally badass. But the Red Bull was pretty early in that space, and I guess as a kid growing up skateboarding, just seeing like, oh yeah, cool, like I can get into that. It was corporate, but also had a little bit of like a surfer bro culture. I mean, Red Bull is still based here. Like the media platforms are all based in Santa Monica, so you can imagine like the kind of people pre-COVID who could commute to Santa Monica were kind of like people in that lifestyle. Lots of flat brim hats.
Sure.
Lots of the pressure to way more Red Bull than any human would want to consume per square footage. Like it was you kind of felt the pressure in those meetings sometimes of like, okay, I guess I should like at least have
I gotta
this here.
performatively drink this, right?
Right. I mean, they should have probably had the what do you call them? It's like what musicians do on stage, where they'll have like the Monster or the Red Bull that's actually just water.
Just water, right? Or they should
those.
They should have you guys also strap in for like weekly EKG heart monitoring to be like, are you good? How many of you drank this week?
Dude, so real. I mean, there was I definitely tried to monitor that, but there was an aspect of kind of peer pressure. But yeah, I could get into it because of my love for like extreme sports and skateboarding and snowboarding and building a media platform around that. And also before Red Bull TV was called the Red Bull, Red Bull Music House or Music Academy, which was basically like do you remember this? It was like a podcast-ish, kind of like playlist type of service. And it was pretty cool. It was like a really wicked, like .com sort of site that you could get on and listen to conversations and interviews with artists and, listen to music, sometimes unreleased tracks, whatnot. But super, that got me into the whole culture of Red Bull. And I think like low key, one of the most killer marketing platforms in the world is, they don't really get tied to the tech industry, but anytime I mention to someone that I worked at Red Bull, it's always like this, oh shit, like that, they do cool stuff. Like
absolutely,
they do.
Totally. And I get this is probably a good entry to this topic of conversation where, and like you were talking about at the beginning, where it was like, you never had aspirations of like, oh, I'm going to make a living off of music. I mean, no one, really, especially that era, like no one did. Like you had, and truthfully, once you got like a little peek behind the curtain of like, so like, I don't know why I always use this example, but I remember like when Mastodon, this is before they signed to a major label, but like they were on Relapse, they were crushing it, doing really well. And it was like, oh, but they're like returning home to like work at bagel shops in between tours because like they could barely subsist. And I was just like, oh, so being a successful musician is literally just being on the road 10 months out of the year and then like maybe working at a bagel shop when you get home or whatever. Anyways, yeah. But the question here is just as you started to navigate, like, what you were and weren't comfortable with in regards to like the applications of your talent, design and everything from, the knowledge base that you have.
Right.
I'm sure there were certain opportunities that was like, that doesn't necessarily like feel good or align to me personally. Like, how did you start to, I guess, develop a vocabulary for yourself internally to be like, that feels right versus that feels wrong? Or is it as simple as that?
It's not that simple. I think being in your early 20s, the idea of kind of like being a rock star and being on the road sounds incredible. Who doesn't want that? And then the reality of it, probably once you've lived it for a few weeks, you can see it's not for everybody. It's not, even the people who really want it. After 3-4 nights of sleeping on people's floors, is, and even we did a tour of Mexico last year, and there were some floor sleeping situations for sure. With, at our age and our the stage that our bodies are at, probably not the greatest, but take the good with the bad. I think being a promoter probably exposed me to a lot of the realities of the music industry, and oscillating between basically being like working in brand and marketing and the music industry. I hope I say this in the most polite way possible, but it kind of felt like the music industry was sort of like like a pretend industry. Like it wasn't taken, it could be taken more seriously. And I don't know, there's a lot of cash being handed from person to person. There's a lot of promoters disappearing at the end of the night. There's there's just a lot of like weird stuff going on, whereas I didn't see that in the design world. It was like, send the Zelle transfer, we got it, we're good. We deliver the product. It's not like a surprise that you thought you were getting $100 at the end of the night and you got nothing. I don't know. There was something around that, and I think it just pushed me into like, all right, like obviously design is the thing that is going to make me a living, and music can be a hobby. And also probably that I just was never the greatest musician, honestly. Like that just like being totally truthful with myself. Like I worked I jammed and played with a lot of people who were friggin' fantastic musicians, and some of those guys are still playing today, either like session or touring or whatnot. And like I could never even come close to what the kind of stuff they were doing. So I just thought, I'll pick my own lane. Design was the thing that helped me get into this, and music is kind of a fun hobby that I really enjoy. So I think that was kind of it. But there's been a lot of like sort of crossover over the years. I mean, working like, I feel like I'm just name dropping brands, but I guess that's kind of been my career. Red Bull, and like any normal person, I went to Headspace, which is a meditation app, where I worked with Scott Sorensen, a friend of ours, and also met a bunch of like hardcore people at Headspace, which was oddly enough kind of I remember interviewing there and seeing a bunch of guys walking around with full sleeves and being like, oh shit, like I'm where I need to be.
Right.
Like, one of my buddy, Michael Marchand, whose brother is singer of AFI, meeting Mike, he was like the head of legal at Headspace.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's right. I remember. Yeah. I remember Davey mentioning that to me at some point, and I was like, oh, like I remember meeting him at like some event or a party or whatever. And I was like, first of all, didn't know you had a brother. Second of all, like, you work at Headspace? I'm like, wow. Okay, cool.
And you're a lawyer?
Totally. Who's the failure now? Right.
Right. Who knows, man? Who knows? And then our VP of engineering is this guy Neil Palreca, who he played bass in Razzle Dazzle for a moment. And I was like it just blew my mind. I'm like, I don't even know how to take this information in. I spent my whole life feeling like an outsider outside of like music and culture and the world. And I moved to Southern California, and I just bumped into all these people kind of randomly. It was the experience of a lifetime. It was incredible.
I'm always thrilled to talk about our friends at evilgreed.com because they are an amazing purveyor of heavy music merchandise and records. But before I tell you about why you need to order from them, use this promo code HISTORY. It's a limited time code that gets you 10% off of your first order. So do it right now, because if you wait a couple weeks and then try this code, it will not work. HISTORY is the promo code. And trust me, when you want the easiest place to buy from bands like, Knocked Loose and Speed, or maybe you're into black metal like Spectral Wound, or if you're like, hey, how about some drone stuff like Sun? That's just a little taste of what they have to offer at evilgreed.com. They ship worldwide, and even though they're based in Berlin, Germany, the shipping rates to us in the United States are very cheap and advantageous. Trust me in saying that evilgreed.com will blow your mind. And then you'll follow them on Instagram because they share really, really cool content. Like I just saw a video that they shared on 4 influential straight edge hardcore records. And sometimes these are things that, you're just like, oh, dude, I know what they're going to talk about. And then they start to show the path of resistance record. And you're just like, oh, I wasn't expecting that cut. But that's the sort of stuff that Evil Greed does. I love them. You should love them too. And use the promo code HISTORY for 10% off of your first order. And go now. No time like the present. Let's go. Pivoting off of that, it's far less,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, frowned upon now, where people
Yeah.
are working for large corporate entities, even if, because at the end of the day, no company of any size like really has their quote unquote hands clean, there's always going to be a sliding scale. Uh,
Yeah.
so like, as you started to navigate the choices that you were making professionally,
Mm-hmm.
what sort of comfort levels were you kind of calibrating in your own head, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel comfortable working in a place like this, but here's where I draw the line. Like, I mean, you don't have to
Right.
describe the lines, but like,
It's
talk to me
fine.
about
Yeah.
your thought process.
Yeah. I mean, working at Red Bull definitely I had a bit of guilt of like, you're selling energy drinks to children essentially. And, even social media platforms are targeting teenagers, people who are still, I guess, creating the brands they associate with. And that could be anything, beverage to social media to whatnot. Like these are all brands that people align with. So I think being like moving from Canada to the US, I definitely came here being like, all right, I'm going to like not mess up this opportunity. Like I'm going to go big or go home kind of thing. And
Right.
so getting on at Red Bull, even though there were parts of it I didn't love, I thought I'm going to make the best of it and try to get somewhere else. And then sometimes I joke that like getting on at Headspace was kind of like my, doing sort of the good for society,
Sure.
the philanthropic kind of side of things. And I mean, the funny thing is I don't think you get both, because even being at Headspace, we would get dumped on sometimes from people. Oh, how dare you like take the Buddhist teachings and package them and sell them? And it's like, well, like they're still free. They're still the teachings. You can get them anywhere from anyone. We just like package them in a different way. And some people might agree with that. Some people might not, but I really, I think that company overall, when you think about the impact and the size, just basically bringing mental health into the picture of society and conversation, I think they did a really big thing, because I don't think companies like Calm would exist without Headspace. I think these companies like BetterHelp and that kind of stuff, like I just don't think that therapy and mental health as a conversation point really happens without Headspace. I mean, eventually it probably would have, but I remember being there like on the ground floor, employee, I don't know, 95 or 100 or something, and just being like, this feels crazy. Like what we're doing feels like I don't even know where we're going, but I want to be on this ship. Like we're going somewhere. That's all I know. And that felt really cool. And then, yeah, after that, having a kid, becoming, I guess a family man, I thought, you know what, I did like 7 or 8 years of the philanthropic side. How do I make the most money possible? So I went to Instagram.
Sure.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the next move. And I thought, yeah, I could. It was really wonderful to work for creators mostly at Instagram, and I thought there was a really nice way to kind of tie in my passions,
Mm-hmm.
and my money making aspirations. And I've got a funny story if you have a second to hear it.
Please.
So there was a time, basically, Monk, my band, was promoting our recent record, and I was posting stuff. You go on the Reddit kind of hardcore and Reddit whatever. You're going all over the place trying to post stuff, post links, and the record label. And we were lucky to sign to Dine Alone early on, and I also credit that to sort of my navigating corporate structures acumen, I guess. We were posting stuff all over the place, and for me, like, data driven, that's how I sort of work every day. And I moved to the US about 10 years ago, and I kind of stopped making music, so my whole world has been, in tech, in that world. So I pretty much applied the playbook to music, and least cool thing you could ever do. And
It's a playbook. Yeah.
it's a playbook. It's a
Right.
book.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was posting band stuff on Reddit, but I was also navigating the like 401k Reddit and the like fire movement Reddit, and like, having conversations around like your financial position in life. And like, honest to God, didn't even cross my mind. I was just living my life, and I got like severely dumped on by a couple people from my past who were like, this guy is, like really, like, you haven't talked to me in 10 years. You don't even know me. Again, we talked about the
Right.
nuance earlier. And that was like, that stung a little bit, but also, hey man, that's me, and
Right.
you rock with me or you don't. I don't, like, if you want
Yeah.
to talk about
That's your
this
decision.
stuff,
Right.
yeah, it's fine. But again, I think anyone who's navigated both those spaces, and I know a lot of people who hide their career aspirations in the punk rock world. No hate against them, but anyway, I felt the sting. I felt the sting from that. That's for sure.
Sure. No, I totally
Yeah.
understand that. And especially too with like where you are coming from creatively, where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I've dipped into this pool in the past of playing music and
Yeah.
obviously being
Yeah.
a fan of it and existing
Mm-hmm.
in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter how active or inactive you are, like
Sure.
there are some people that are just obviously always going to be connected to it. They're going to be lifers,
Yeah.
paying attention to
Right.
it.
Right.
And you are definitely one of those people where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
once you dip your toe back in the pool and be like, hey guys, I'm in a band, I'm doing this, and like people are gonna be
Yeah.
like, who is this guy? Come on, what is this?
I went like normie mode for a decade, trying to figure out my shit in the US and trying to get my green card, and making sure I was doing the best I could at work, and trying to be like trying to adhere to DIY and punk in corporate environments. And I definitely skewed heavily corporate, and that, whatever, it's fine, it's me. But yeah, no, you're on point there, that's for sure. But I think there's so many people who, and I hope anyone who hears that doesn't feel bad for their journey in and out of music. And it's, again, like, who's going to be there when retirement time comes? Yeah, it's a harsh reality for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And it doesn't, I think the thing, just speaking from my experience, like when I started to work mostly obviously in the podcast space, but like work for large
Mm-hmm.
companies, whether it's, my current employer at Amazon or whether it's working for iHeart or whatever, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I always felt like the most damage that I could do, when I say damage, I mean that in a
Sure.
non-threatening way, but like,
Yeah.
I can affect a lot of change internally, whether it's like, I'm not going to change corporate policies or whatever, but like the people, just in this very similar fashion to you, the people that you're interacting with on a day-to-day experience, if you are literally exposing them to like a different train of thought, whether that's like,
Totally.
oh, wow, like, veganism or vegetarianism,
Yeah.
straight edge or whatever, like, or
Yeah.
just the simple notion of like, this is
Yep.
this scene that exists and people are just like, for
Mm-hmm.
real? Like, wait, you're in a band, Frank? What's the band called? Monk? And you yell? What? Like,
Yeah.
that act in and of itself, and I know this is like very dramatic, but like it's a revolutionary act just to expose a person to that.
100%. And you meet a lot of interesting people too along the way. We're like, yeah, you know what? I loved Blink 182 as a teenager. And you're like, all right, now we're friends. Now we're buds. Now I'm going to, when that End It record comes out, I'm going to send it to you over Slack.
Yep.
And now I have a hardcore friend at work. Like it, and it makes work so much better.
Totally.
To just have, now it just feels like I'm hanging out with buds. And yeah.
And you can and truthfully too, like the way that you think about not only design, but like business and all the way that you are applying all of who you are and all of what you were raised with, where it's just like, oh yeah, like maybe don't make this choice because this feels terrible. It's screwing this person over or whatever. It's like, not everybody has that, that intuition.
Right.
That's been punished into us where it's like, this is, we're usually going to operate ethically.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And there was a question earlier we were talking about, I might have gone off topic, but around the sort of decision between like, do you go all in on music or all in on like job stuff? And I think like early on, I had an old band called Vicious Cycle, and we were on a label called Deranged Records,
Oh yeah,
out
yeah.
of British Columbia, and also one of the most badass labels on earth. I mean, they had not just incredible American acts, but they had the whole like Europe and Swedish sort of like punk and even like more metal kind of stuff going on. But
Yep.
Deranged, I mean, and I got to design their website, so it was like I got to be an artist on the or like a band member of a band on the roster and help them with the website. So I felt like I'm contributing in a lot of ways here. Um, and then just thinking about some of the some of the, some of the acts on their roster, and then um, eventually getting invited to that, or Vicious Cycle got invited to tour with a little known band called Alexis on Fire. And we did like a small run of college gigs, like 4 or 5 gigs. Also, like, shout out to those guys that pretty much made my teenage years, like that was like the best week of my life. Like
Yep.
never thought that would be a thing.
Nope.
That said, meeting those guys and seeing that even for them, a career in music is really hard. I think that showed me that, like, I don't know if this is, I don't think I'm not as talented as they are, and I don't think that is going to be for me. So
Sure.
if those guys are, like, they're in there, and a guy like Dallas, who's in Alexis and City and Color, this guy's got 2 bands that are
Right.
superstardom. Like, he's like the only guy I know who is doing music as a full-time forever career.
Right.
And so I think I just sort of picked my cards early. I was like, yeah, no, that's like, I can't sing like he can. Like, who else can anyway? But,
Yeah.
anyway, just like a little story around sort of learnings early on. And I think being a promoter and seeing actually like what the payout was for some of those gigs, even, Silverstein, August Burns Red, like bands and genres that I wasn't even, I was more leaning punk side, but was booking more like metalcore stuff.
Sure.
And being like, yeah, we're paying these guys. These guys are getting paid out pretty well at the end of the night. But you think about the, whatever it is, 10% management, 10% booker. Like, and I think today it's more like 15
Yep.
for everybody. And yeah, after you pay Uncle Sam and all the stuff, it's like, I don't really know what's left at the end of it. Sounds kind of rough. And just that pressure to keep putting out banger after banger. I think like you're lucky if you get one huge album, but to try to up that every time is like really, it sounds really challenging. And honestly, like, I just looked at what was on my table and thought, I'll just stick to making websites.
Yeah. I got this. Yeah. Let me just lean into the design. Yeah.
Totally.
I know you kind of mentioned this previously as far as like, designers that you were looking up to that came from our particular scene. Who were kind of, landmark people for you, especially like in the earlier years that you were looking up to,
Yeah.
that was like, oh my gosh, like, Jake Banizard or whatever, like who are people that you were looking to that really inspired you?
Yeah. I mean, you said Jake Bannon first. Is he might be kind of the, the model of like somebody who really marries music and art. And like, Jake's been running Death Wish for years, but I don't know if Jake's worked at, startup or a big tech company.
Yeah.
Lucky for him. But he's obviously worked his butt off making incredible art. So he's one. I think seeing somebody like Chris Callahan, sort of like navigate art making and being a killer vocalist in bands like Left 4 Dead and Curse, and I think he did the artwork for a power violence band called The Endless Blockade that
Oh yeah.
I absolutely loved. And that record is, I just, as a piece of art, I would frame that and put that on the wall. I thought that was a really killer piece of art. There's a group out of Toronto called Double Knot. Andrew McCracken and his twin brother, they both come from hardcore, but Andrew played bass in Cancer Bats early on. And just seeing like the aesthetic that band had back in the day, they've kind of like steered away from it a little bit, but I think they had like a super crisp, clean kind of like itsnicethat.com sort of vibe. Just seeing a band in metal have that look and feel was like, just like spoke my language. Um, Dan Romano, Attack in Black, as a visual artist, what a star. I mean, he's multi-talented, absolutely.
Yeah.
A little bit more kind of like indie leaning. There was one guy, I forget his name. I don't remember his name, but he had a website, thesmallstakes.com. It was
Okay.
very like sort of super minimalist poster design. I thought that stuff was really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
No,
I
it's
mean, yeah,
I just like that. I mean, I love the broad brush that you painted there, just because it is
yeah,
so, especially those years, whatever, 16 to, early 20s, where
yeah,
you really are developing not only your music taste, but your aesthetic
yeah,
taste. And
totally.
it's those particular people, even if it's just like
Mhm.
literally one piece of art and you're like,
Yeah,
that's it. That unlocks something in my brain.
yep,
Yeah.
100% did. Yeah, it was like you can make something from nothing. And that was like I super nerd and not cool of me, but the first time someone paid to attend a show and gave me like $5 to walk in the door was kind of like an unlock moment of like, oh, whoa, okay, like we made like this didn't exist.
Right. I could do
Y-
this? You're
y-
allowing me? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No
It
one's
was like,
checking?
and people nowadays on Twitter, there's like this movement of like, you can just do things. Have you seen this?
No. You can,
Okay. So it's like, there's a quote, like, you can just do things.
right.
And it's like, I'm like, yeah, it's like DIY. Like,
Right.
it's always been there. And it's
Totally.
kind of taken over the Silicon Valley kind of like VC world. But like, yeah,
Mm.
you can just do things. It's DIY. It's always been here.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's like, and that's it's funny. I'm glad you brought that up, because it definitely comes in I mean, everything comes in cycles, but like,
Yep.
if you've been immersed in a thing, you can recognize when it starts to, like, I don't know
Mhm.
why this sticks in my brain, but like, when the
Sure.
television network, like the DIY network came up, and I was just
Mhm.
like, that's funny. Like, cause I know it's just obviously home renovations, all this sort of
Right.
stuff, but I'm like, I was like, yeah, it's been here. I'm like, are you
Right.
guys covering, DIY art communities? Like, no, you're not. Just house repair. But yeah,
Like, yeah, you could build a deck. You can start a band. You
totally. Yeah.
can-
I think that the thing that I have always pulled through is just that notion, like, yes, like you can do anything, but just like,
yeah.
it's the ability, like, to not ask permission. Like, neither you or I or
Yeah.
anybody that's ever been involved in this has been like, oh, maybe I should like clear it with my parents. I'm gonna like start a band or whatever. No, you just do it and then figure it
Yeah.
out.
No, no. Yeah. Yeah. You ask, it's like forgiveness later kind of thing. And, yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that.
Right. And so with the focus on Monk, like we were talking about,
Hmm.
kind of permeated throughout the conversation. Like, what drew you to? And I know this sounds so basic, of just like, why'd you start the band? But like, you don't
Yeah.
need to do this, dude, but you do, and it's cool.
Like in my heart, I do. Um, I'm my, classic story when you're like a 20 something year old, your band breaks up, except for you, I guess. It never happened for you guys.
No,
I don't,
I mean, we
it,
broke up, but then, yeah, I mean, I think, I mean,
yeah,
now it's funny because I think bands don't break up now because there's like no
sure.
reason to, but like,
Right.
it used to be you had to have a really definitive statement where it's like, oh yes, we're not going to
Yeah.
tour anymore, so we have to break up, I guess. So
It
yeah, yeah,
really felt that way. It really felt that way. Yeah,
yeah,
no, yeah. And so sort of my teenage, early 20s band felt like it had to break up. Our singer didn't want to kind of do this anymore. He didn't like touring. I tried to sing for a little bit to try to cover. I was, it as when you replace a singer, really hard thing to do. Maybe
yep,
the toughest thing to do. And yeah, it just kind of ended. And we were right on the cusp of, I mean, I'm sorry to backtrack, but we were about to sign on with Dine Alone at the time. This was like, I don't know, geez, maybe 20 years ago.
mhm,
And we were being asked to do some Latin American dates with Alexis at that time. And it was sort of like, it was like an all or nothing feeling. Like either we're going to break up and never do anything again, or we're about to go on this like Latin American tour and maybe we'll do Australia. And it was like these places we'd never been to. And I was so fucking bitter that it didn't happen. I was so upset because I was the person who put less time into writing music and more time into the other stuff, the logistical side of things. And I think that just ate at me internally for so long. And moving to the US, I got to kind of like distract myself with corporate, which was probably a great thing in the long run. You know, I got my stuff together and became an adult and a parent. And then COVID happened and it was sort of like, yeah, skateboarding, punk rock, like why are we doing any of this? Let's get back into it. And all my music buddies were basically out of work trying to do session stuff or recording studio kind of things. And I just didn't have a lot of friends in the music world here in Southern California because I spent 10 years being in a corporate environment. And I essentially sent some riffs to a few buddies back in Ontario and was like, hey, here's some like guitar parts I've been sitting on. You know, these are my audio recordings from my iPhone for like
Right.
a decade. Um, can you can you like help me write? Can you help me like piece together some songs? Um, and anyway, we sort of like hacked through it in a way, and it felt really organic and totally normal because it was the middle of a pandemic and nothing, you know, there was nothing else to do. And these guys had basically built out studios in their basements, and now we have the technology. Everybody's got half decent microphones, and you know, people can mix and master and all that stuff. And that's kind of how the first rendition of the band came out, and it felt a little bit like I hate to say like victory lap, but sort of like I don't know, a throwback to like a chapter I wanted to finish, if that makes sense. And then yeah, once that sort of chapter finished, was like, all right, like forget the chapter, new book. Like let's you know, let's do it. Let's do it for real. And then just been kind of doing it ever since, and had a few connections from the past, but obviously the music world has totally changed in that time. Like coming from MySpace era into the Spotify era, it's a totally different game. And a few of those artists from back then are still playing. Do you know the band Single Mothers?
Yeah. Drew.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Drew.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Drew was like, he was one of the great friends who was nice enough to invite us on a couple tours, and we got to play with those guys in Canada, and we got to open with them for DOA in Southern California. Also, like, come on, like this,
Right.
what a
Canadian.
story! Like,
Right.
yeah,
Totally.
incredible.
Totally.
As a Canadian, it's like that's the poster. I'm gonna print that like 24 inches wide. That's going on the wall forever, you know? And, anyway, that was kind of like how that happened. And then it's just been a really fun artistic outlet for me ever since. And I feel like I've been able to apply kind of my, again, like nerdiest thing I'll say, sort of like product thinking and strategy to music and how I piece things together. And for some people, they're going to hate that. But for me, that's just how my brain works. And I don't really know how to not think that way.
Yeah.
Well,
again, that would literally be going against like the nature of you as a human. Like you can't just connect that part of your brain to be like, no.
Sorry guys. Yeah. It's, again, like thinking about we did a couple EPs, we've done some good tours. We've seen that like Mexico and Latin America have been the big kind of draws for us. Again, like Southern California, you've been here forever. This is a tough market.
Yep.
It's one of the toughest. And seeing how like Mexico has responded to us as a band, I'm like, man, I need more of that. That's like, we got to get back there. Like it may be similar to you guys in Japan, of like, you go for it and you feel it. You go, whoa, that was something. Like, I want more of that.
This is how shows should be.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Totally.
And so, yeah, we're going to do Latin America next year. And we've done a couple EPs. I think we're going to focus on some singles, and just thinking like the music side is great and everything, but I'm having so much fun just like jumping into Photoshop and Illustrator again and making artwork for all the singles. And like, how does this whole kind of universe of Monk kind of like come together aesthetically? And also like, of course, it's like married to the music.
Mm-hmm.
Both, they can't exist separately, but for me, it kind of starts visual first. I always start that with a preamble of like, that's not going to be for everybody, but that's how it works for me.
That's how it works for you. The last thing I'll hit you with is so
Sure.
like you mentioned you are a father, and
Mhm.
what does your kid think about your music? Does he think daddy's weird by yelling into a microphone? Like what's the vibe?
Oh god, yeah, no, she's come to some shows a couple times. I think she's 5 now, so she's past the age of being, like, convinced. Like, she needs convincing now, I guess, where I can't just be like, "Hey, get in the car, we're going somewhere."
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
"Where are we going? And is it like, what
Yeah.
is it?" And,
I don't
you
want.
know,
Do I want to go? I don't think I do. Yeah.
she knows the difference between, like, music and, like, band. She calls it, like, band stuff. And like, I'm not even trying to be funny, but she will say, like, your band friends, like, they don't even know how to sing. Like, it's not beautiful.
That's so good.
Yeah. And I'm like,
So
you're
good.
not wrong. Like,
Yeah. No, you're completely right. And actually, it's meant to sound like that, which is
yeah.
even crazier.
Like, yeah. She's like, yeah. And she keeps saying, she's like, I'm gonna start a band called Angel, and it's gonna be just like angel sounding voices instead of your like rah 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 rah. Like, she always does impressions. And again, me and my wife have fun with it. We like I get on a little bit and try to like, hey, sing like dad's band sings, and she'll just like rah, 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 rah. Like,
Yep.
it's so bad. But yeah, anyway, I did have the luxury of bringing her to some gigs when she was like 2 or 3 with the big headphones and making sure
Yep.
their ears are safe and everything. But yeah, how has that been is that an experience you've had?
It's really it's insanely bizarre to
Mhm.
have, especially, I mean, Taken playing shows again. Like he
Mhm.
went to an EP release that we did, I think it was 2018,
Mhm.
and it was just weird being like, I'm playing in my high school band. My
Right.
child is watching me at a venue that I grew up in, Chain Reaction. I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yep.
what is this? It definitely makes
Yeah.
it makes your brain fold in on itself, where I'm just like, I like, have I progressed at all? I don't know. Here we
What are we
are.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah,
But I love
exactly.
it, and it's
No,
fun. Yeah.
very similar to you be like, you know what? I'm going to get on a skateboard during the pandemic. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's yeah. Yep. No, that's nice to hear. It's yeah, no, I think there's a lot of people having similar again, it's like your parents will never be that cool to you as a kid. It's like,
No.
what was it, you've listened to Damien Turned Out a Punk,
Yep.
his podcast. Like, I think there was a quote of his kid saying something like music is for old people or something, like just music, like not
Right.
not even just rock music,
Right.
just like
Who
music,
listens to
like
music?
songs and albums, like that's old people stuff. Like, I just listen to TikTok, I guess.
We are inching ever so closer to episode 700. But thank you very much, Frank, for coming on the show and being a part of this show's tapestry in general. And check out his band, Monk. Extremely good. You can find it on all streaming platforms. Let's talk about next week. I have Jack Shirley from the Atomic Garden, and he also played in Comadre. He's been an integral part to the Bay Area punk and hardcore scene in documenting bands, because the name of his recording studio is the Atomic Garden, and he's done so many cool records for so many amazing bands. And it was one of those things where Jack and I have known each other but not really communicated. And then one day it dawned on me. I was like, you know what? I need to have Jack on the show. And so I reached out, we made it happen, and it was great. So yeah, that's what's happening next week. And until then, please be safe, everybody.